On the outskirts of Greek City, a man is almost finished building his restaurant. He takes a step back and looks at his hard work. Tears of joy begin to flow from his eyes. This is Ellison, a retired Class 9 archmage. As he clenches his fist, he whispers, "Finally, my own restaurant." It's been 15 years. 15 years ago, he was heading home from school as usual and a bit sleepy. His dream was to become a famous chef after graduation and open a small restaurant. However, that dream was shattered when a truck came rushing at him. He was stunned in place. When he opened his eyes, he was greeted with the scenery of an unfamiliar world. His eyes couldn't believe what he was seeing. Just then a hand grabs his shoulder. "Get yourself together. If you mess up during evacuation, you'll die on the road." Unable to process what's happening, Ellison asks the man where they are. He informed him that they were in the city of Greek, located on the outskirts of the Laverne Empire. He is in shock. What kind of ridiculous situation is this? A world with monsters, magic, and an empire that seems to be at war with dragons. Ellison decided to adapt and think positively. "I almost died after being hit by a truck, but luckily I got a second chance. There's no way this world is that bad, right?" Just then, an edict from the emperor came. "People of Laverne Empire, the fate of the country is at stake. Now, you must stand up for this country yourself." Ellison is getting nervous about the atmosphere. Our emperor commands, "Let us fight in the name of the knights." With that, he was dumbfounded. He didn't even know how to respond to this situation. War broke out, and the youth had to join the force attacking the dragon, so he ended up enlisting too. Ellison lamented, "You should have just let me get hit by the truck." Soon, due to his magical talent, he was assigned to the mages squad. Compared to knights, mages didn't have to fight on the front lines. After arriving in this world, Ellison discovered the food was extremely unpalatable and hard to swallow, but the people consider the food good. He thought to himself, "If I could open a restaurant here, how popular it would be. That's right, I can still achieve my unfulfilled dream here." With his commitment to his dream, he ultimately persevered. 15 years later, Ellison finally retired. He chose to start a new life in Greek City, opening a restaurant with his former comrades. At that time, a woman noticed the restaurant. She decides to check it out, but is startled by Ellison's crying face. He's crying like he's having a really rough time, she thought worriedly. "Are you okay?" This time, Ellison noticed the woman. "Yes, I'm okay. I'm just so happy that I finally managed to open my restaurant," he said while wiping his tears. After talking, he learned her name was Rain, the owner of a nearby shop. Rain then asked if he managed the restaurant alone. Ellison answered that he was with a comrade who was sleeping soundly at the moment. Rain then recommended her husband's butcher shop to Ellison, but warned him that her husband had a temper. However, Ellison thought, seeing how kind Rain was, her husband must be easy to talk to. Yet, when he met the shop owner, he became so nervous he couldn't speak. It turned out the owner mistook him for a merchant from another store. Before he could speak and buy any meat, the owner angrily said, "I'm not selling it." He nervously asked why. "Are your ears clogged?" "I'm not selling it. You are a restaurant owner. I've seen a lot of guys like you. You all buy meat at low prices and then sell it back at double the price before it spoils." Ellison was stunned. "I don't do that though." At that moment, a frying pan slammed into the top of the owner's head. The previously arrogant owner instantly lost his temper. Then, Rain asked Ellison if he wanted Belrin meat, and Ellison affirmed. Unexpectedly, the temperamental owner was actually afraid of the kind shopkeeper. Caught in the middle, Ellison thought, "I want to go home." Under the threat of the frying pan, the owner had to obediently fetch the meat. The shopkeeper, feeling very sorry, explained he was also a soldier once but turned this way after being deceived by a colleague. Meanwhile, the owner brought the meat and gestured for Ellison to show his skills. However, when Ellison checked the bag, it was not Belrin meat. "Do you think I'll give you precious Belrin meat? Belrin meat is of excellent quality and is delicious no matter how you eat it. Only with my approval will I supply it. Otherwise, you won't even get a piece of fat. Let's see what delicious food you can make." I didn't expect that I'd be receiving this meat instead of Belrin. Before the shop owner could finish, another frying pan flew towards the back of his head. The shopkeeper signaled Ellison to ignore his conditions. Despite the strict terms, Ellison agreed to the owner's offer and invited them to taste his cooking at his restaurant that evening. Rain was a bit shocked. Afterward, Ellison confidently left. But Rain is a bit worried that's the belly fat of a wooba though. In this world, the names of livestock and animals are completely different from where Ellison came from. Cows are called wuka, chickens as palenque, wolves as belrin, and pigs are known as wooba. Belrin meat is considered an expensive ingredient, while the most cost-effective meat choice is pork, but the locals do not appreciate the delicacy of pork belly. Considering the quality of pork belly, roasting is naturally the most delicious. Before that, the meat needs to be slashed several times to better absorb the flavors. During roasting, the surface moisture evaporates quickly, obtaining a crispier texture. Wasn't it overkill to use a technique that could instantly kill monsters to slice the meat? Just then, the doorbell rang, and the Rain couple arrived. Ellison asked them to wait a moment. While Rain praised the clean environment of the restaurant, Noel couldn't help but complain a few words. Rain silently took out a frying pan, seemingly feeling the bottom wasn't shiny enough. On the other side, Ellison was preparing for the roast. After heating the roasting tray, he gently brushed it with oil. Because pork belly is high in fat, it should be brushed sparingly to prevent sticking. When placing the meat, start from the skin side outside. Otherwise, as the inside begins to cook, the skin might dry out, affecting the uniformity of the roasting. The delicious cooking even enhanced the appetite through sound, such as the sizzling sound of pork. After frying the pork skin, adjust the heat to let the sides of the pork skin develop some color. After sprinkling with salt, thoroughly roast the pork belly to ensure the internal temperature is even. Then cut the meat into sizes convenient for eating. Next, prepare a salad to accompany the meal. Although locals might not be familiar with this way of only eating wraps, Ellison thought this combination would make the meal even tastier. Various vegetables and rich seasonings balance the rich taste of roasted pork belly. Mr. Knoll seemed meticulous, so it was best to avoid unnecessary additions. Finally, they plated it as the finishing touch: salad and roasted pork belly. When the roasted meat was served, Rain began to anticipate. "Goodness, that looks delicious," while Mr. Knoll, who is still grumpy, said, "It's just the appearance." Rain then picks up a piece of meat. Just one bite. The crispy wooba meat blossomed in the mouth as if running on the plains. Rain couldn't help but exclaim, "Is this really wooba meat?" Ellison nodded affirmatively. The rich aroma of the salad also neutralized the greasiness of the wooba meat, a combination Rain hadn't expected. Meanwhile, Ellison asked Mr. Knoll's opinion, by which time Knoll's plate was already empty, and he said, "It's not enough, far from enough." He signaled Ellison to serve more meat. At that moment, a frying pan appeared again on Knoll's crown, and Rain teased, "If you want more, just ask for it." Mr. Knoll clears his throat. "Congratulations, you passed the test. To be honest, among all the wooba dishes I've tried so far, this was the best. Whatever type of meat you want, I will provide the best from the Laverne Empire." Ellison was very grateful for Mr. Knoll's recognition. "Pleasure to work with you." Mr. Knoll then added, "Now I just want to eat more roast meat." Ellison then signaled them to wait a moment. Meanwhile, the aroma from the kitchen drifted into a girl's room, and she was attracted by the sudden fragrance. "I smell something delicious." The scene shifts. Since the restaurant opened a week ago, Ellison has adapted very well, and his diner has received unanimous praise from the locals. And behind all this success, it couldn't have happened without these spices and seasonings, which are rare and expensive in this world, so people can't use them casually. Additionally, the quality and variety of products here cannot compare to those of the modern world, but Ellison has a way to obtain them. He placed a gold coin in the center of the summoning circle and, after reciting a magic spell, modern products appeared before him. The summoning magic of this world can bring objects from the modern world, a spell Ellison stumbled upon while searching for a way back to his original world. Although there are some limitations on the size and weight of the objects, this has already provided him immense help. However, this also indirectly proves that it's not a perfect spell, as it hasn't achieved its main purpose of taking Ellison back to his original world. Moreover, grocery store food, unless processed like fresh meat, eggs, or vegetables, tends to spoil. The specific reason remains unclear. Even though Ellison possesses the capabilities of a high-ranking mage, he can only summon once a day. Just then, he wanted to grab 2 beers to quench his thirst, but when he opened the fridge, he found it was empty. Ellison quickly guessed the situation. Rurin was sleeping when she suddenly felt a knock on his head. "What is this? I didn't do anything wrong." Leaving Ellison helpless, Ellison sighed. "This. You took the beer out of the refrigerator and drank all of it. At least clean up after drinking. That's the consequence of you not leaving any delicious food for me last time." As the greatest black dragon, Rurin retorted, "And this body is a dragon's. Why would I do something like cleaning? Cleaning up is something lower beings do." As she spoke, a clang sounded, seemingly heralding new trouble. "Peel all of that and organize it." "But I'm a dragon," Rurin said while peeling a basin of onions. As Rurin herself said, her true form is a black dragon. Ellison found her after she became an orphan. She lost her mother and homeland in the Dragon War. Although she has lived for hundreds of years and has taken human form, she is still young for a dragon. Perhaps that's why she is immature. Thus, Ellison decided to take her in, and seeing her pitiful look, Ellison promised to make her a steak burger. Just then, as they were about to close for the night, the doorbell rang again, and in came Mr. Knoll. He looked troubled, and the first thing he did upon entering was to ask Ellison to serve him a drink and some snacks. But Rurin had already drunk the beer in the fridge. "I should give him this." Ellison luckily summoned a bottle of liquor last time. Ellison serves Mr. Knoll his order. It didn't take long for Mr. Knoll to finish the liquor. Ellison then advised him not to drink anymore, but Mr. Knoll, numbed by alcohol, began to reveal his troubles. Hearing this, Ellison was suddenly shocked, wondering what exactly had happened. Mr. Knoll then explained the whole story. He discovered that Rain dressed up and went out every now and then, a situation that had persisted for several months. Therefore, he decided to secretly follow her, only to find that Rain was meeting an old colleague from her mercenary days, and this person was also Mr. Knoll's closest friend. After saying this, Mr. Knoll wept bitterly, unsure of what to do. After hearing this, Ellison felt that things were not as they seemed on the surface. "Please leave this case to me, sir." Although he hadn't known Rain for long, he was certain she wasn't the type to commit betrayal. Meanwhile, Rurin was muttering as she worked. Ellison then asked her, "Do you want to go out, or would you prefer to continue peeling?" Rurin nodded sadly, agreeing to go out. Moments later, they arrived at the place Mr. Knoll mentioned. In front of a restaurant, they found Mrs. Rain, and sitting opposite her was was a man, presumably that colleague. To better understand their situation, Ellison let Ruren use space magic to listen to their conversation, promising her a beef burger as a reward. The gluttonous Ruren demanded two, and Ellison readily agreed. Through magic, Ellison heard their entire conversation and found that their relationship was not as Mr. Null had imagined. It appeared to be a big misunderstanding. After pondering for a moment, Ellison directly appeared before the two and said, "Mr. Null misunderstood you too." On the other side, Mr. Null lay drunkenly on the table when Ment, his comrade, and Rain appeared at the restaurant door. Mr. Null woke up, saw them, and angrily raised his fist, ready to attack his comrade. However, the comrade didn't seem to want to evade, but Ellison promptly used a magic barrier to block Mr. Null's attack. Ellison advised, "Mr. Null, hitting him won't solve the problem. If you knew earlier that Mr. Ment had lent you money when you opened your meat shop, perhaps you would calm down." Upon hearing this, Mr. Null incredulously stopped what he was doing. Ellison continued, "Let's all sit down and talk properly." Considering Mr. Null had drunk a lot, Ellison decided to sober him up, suggesting using hot pot as a solution. Meanwhile, Rain explained everything thoroughly. When Mr. Null was swindled out of all his savings, it was Mr. Ment who lent him the money to open a shop. If it had been a direct loan, Mr. Null would surely have refused, so Rain falsely claimed that a lord helped them recover the money. "But didn't you have plans after retiring from your mercenary life? Then how can you? The food is ready." Just then, Ellison interrupted them. "Sorry, the vegetables shouldn't be boiled for too long. Isn't it better to talk while eating?" Mr. Ment tasted it first and then asked Mr. Null to try it as well. After a brief taste, they began reminiscing about their past lives. Although it had been over a decade, it seemed like just yesterday. With Ellison's hot pot helping along, years of grudges and secrets were revealed, and their conflicts were finally resolved. But Ruren was not pleased on the side. "What about the 2 beef burgers you promised?" Ellison could only smile awkwardly. "I almost forgot." Just then, Mr. Ment called out to Ellison, expressing a desire to host an important figure in their mercenary group's gathering here. Ellison readily agreed. A few days later, Ellison thought of a suitable menu. This is not a chicken, but a creature similar to a chicken called Palenque. In this world, it is considered a high-end ingredient because it is very fast and difficult for ordinary people to catch, even for Ellison, a high-ranking mage, so he had to find another way. Previously, Ellison went to Mr. Null's shop, and Mr. Null was shocked when he heard that Ellison wanted Palenque meat. He told Ellison that this meat was rarely sold even once a year and advised him to give up the idea. However, Ellison decided to use reverse psychology. "Didn't you say you could get me any meat I want? Where's the confident Mr. Null now?" Fortunately, Mr. Null pointed Ellison in the right direction. Recently, Palenque had been spotted in the lemon forest, so Ellison went to the lemon forest, but the Palenque proved too difficult to catch. Then, he decided to let Ruren try. The next instant, a terrifying pressure covered the entire forest, and with Ruren releasing a dragon roar, the Palenque was so frightened by the powerful pressure that it couldn't move and even fainted. Ruren proudly said, "If you're not careful, you'll end up like this Palenque." Moments later, the two returned to the diner, and Ruren finally got her beer again. Ellison reminded her not to drink all the beer, as the upcoming delicacies would pair well with it. The scene shifts to the evening, and Mr. Ment's mercenary group was already waiting, all looking forward to Ellison's cooking. "Ellison, sorry, it's quite noisy, isn't it? It's a celebration, Mr. Ment. How can it be quiet?" Ment also brought along his junior, Miltine, who said, "The senior praised this restaurant highly, and I really look forward to it. I hope it lives up to your expectations." Then, a golden fried chicken was placed in front of them. Ellison said, "I'm sure everyone knows about Palenque, right? This is a delicacy made from Palenque meat." This startled Miltine. A creature even professional hunters can't catch turned into food? Ellison urged them to eat while it was hot, as that's when it tasted best. It was their first time eating Palenque meat, and just one bite had them conquered by its deliciousness. The crispy outer skin, fried to a golden crisp, offered a rich texture with each bite, irresistible. Miltine ended up eating 2 in a row. "Hey Miltine, don't eat it all by yourself." Ellison knew this meal was a great success, but now there were too many guests, and Ellison couldn't manage alone, so he signaled Ruren to help. But Ruren seemed reluctant, complaining, "Are you really asking a noble dragon to serve humans now?" This stunned Ellison. Then, Ellison pulled out his Oscar-level acting skills, instantly changing his tone. "If you don't like it, then forget it. After the war, we'll open a restaurant together and run it together. I think feelings can change. But for now, I'm fine alone. You can go back now." This shocked Ruren, who quickly said, "I'll get to work right now. Surely, serving beer should be no problem for a dragon." Then, Ellison handled the cooking, while Ruren took care of serving the food and beer. The two were busy for half a day, finally collapsing on the table, exhausted. Ruren sighed. "Is it finally over?" Ellison had already prepared food for her, and the worn-out Ruren devoured the fried chicken, very satisfied with Ellison's cooking. Ellison, surprised she even helped clean up, teased, "Did you finally grow up a little?" Ruren suddenly bubbled up, slowly leaning on Ellison's shoulder, saying, "Because this is our restaurant." Seeing the exhausted Ruren, Ellison also felt very happy. Just then, Ellison sensed a strange presence quietly approaching, and Ruren immediately detected a familiar scent frantically hiding behind Ellison. Ellison. As the door slowly opened, Ellison also felt uneasy. Cities of humans always displease me. Long time no see. Black Dragon Elder Metadana. The elder's voice came through, and Ellison understood he was here for Rurin. It turns out that before this, the dragon race had abandoned Rurin and her mother. Although Ellison took her away, the Black Dragon race did not stop him, which was their promise at the time. However, the elder now intended to renege, saying, promises have an order. They are sequential. In the Black Dragon race, reaching 800 years old is considered adulthood. A dragon without its own lair by 800 years old must leave for the sacred lands. Once Rurin turns 800 next year, she must go to the sacred land. It is the rule of the dragon race. No one can break it. Breaking the rules means war. Ellison sighed softly. If that's the case, then let's begin. Seeing this, the elder immediately transformed into his dragon human form, scoffing, you might be stronger than the rumors say, but you underestimate us. Rurin panicked too, quickly signaling Ellison not to start a war. Ellison froze. What? War? I was talking about creating a dragon's lair. It turned out that both Rurin and the elder had misunderstood Ellison's words. Ellison explained, we still have a whole year, and now we've also accumulated enough wealth, so we can start building the dragon's lair. Does that work for you, Black Dragon Elder? The Black Dragon Elder nodded silently, giving an affirmative answer, then said, I will return in a year, and left. Next, Ellison's task was to create a magnificent dragon's lair with an awe-inspiring interior design. Dazzling treasures are a symbol of the dragon's lair, and obviously, creating a dragon's lair requires a lot of time and resources. At this moment, Ellison found himself in a dilemma. The guests were coming in like a tide because rumors had spread that the restaurant had palenque meat. Although Ellison told them he would no longer sell it, he was still overwhelmed. No, I need a way to reduce the number of guests. So, Ellison found Mr. Knoll. When Mr. Knoll saw the hillsides covered with palenque, he too was incredulous. He didn't understand why Ellison had caught so many palenque. To this, Ellison explained, next, I will provide you with palenque meat, the only place in the empire that sells it, sure to attract a lot of customers. What made Mr. Knoll curious wasn't these palenque, but how Ellison had managed to catch so many. Even for the top hunters of Great City, this was outrageous. Ellison told him not to worry, because he has his own ways and profit distribution will be 50-50. Hearing this, Mr. Knoll disagreed. What? You're doing too much. You're catching them and giving them to us. So why are you only keeping half? After discussing with Mr. Knoll, he readily agreed to cooperate. Just then, Mr. Knoll wondered why these palenque wouldn't run away. Ellison drew a magic circle on the ground, and instantly a huge magical barrier covered the entire hilltop. Mr. Knoll was stunned on the spot, thinking, this can't be possible for someone who's only studied magic for a few years. Just who are you really? Meanwhile, Ellison signaled Mr. Knoll to keep it a secret. I am just a restaurant owner who retired after the war, just like you, Mr. Knoll. A few days later, the restaurant's operations turned out exactly as Ellison had expected, even better than he had anticipated. But today, surprisingly, not a single guest came. Ellison couldn't help but exclaim, isn't this a bit too good? I thought there would still be some customers. I never thought it would be empty. Rurin was very happy. Now we have time to dig the dragon's lair. Will you live with me once we build the lair? Ellison flatly refuses, making Rurin shout, what? Then I don't need it. Let's declare war with the Black Dragon family. Calm down. We're going to build it somewhere near. Rurin, unsure of this, asked, are you sure it's nearby? Then, Ellison took Rurin to the foot of the mountain where the restaurant was located. Since the restaurant itself was on the outskirts of the city, the nearby land was all his. Rurin was very satisfied with this, but Ellison reminded her, we must activate the magic barrier during the digging process, otherwise the restaurant will collapse. After hearing this, Rurin rolled up her sleeves, ready to start working, while Ellison turned and left. I think the restaurant can't be left unguarded. This left Rurin stunned. So you're trying to be lazy? Ellison returned to the restaurant. He hadn't had such leisure time in a long time. Just then, the doorbell suddenly rang, and a well-dressed boy pushed open the door, asking if this was the rumored place where one could eat palenque meat. Ellison affirmed, but regretfully stated, we no longer sell palenque. You might want to check Mr. Knoll's meat shop. However, the boy seemed very anxious and immediately asked if there was any other food available. So, Ellison invited him to wait a moment, thinking of a suitable dish. He thought, a burger should suit this boy's taste. Ellison prepared the burger using beef sirloin, chopping it up and shaping it, adding a bit of salt, and frying it in melted butter. Then, he placed the patty on some vegetables, drizzled it with garlic sauce, and topped it with an egg from a palenque. Thus, the irresistible burger, even to dragons, was complete. At the sight of the burger, the noble boy seemed very interested and immediately picked it up to try. But just then, the door was opened again, and a stern butler called out his name. Young master, I searched for you everywhere. What are you doing in a place like this? Hearing the voice, he immediately became frightened and stopped what he was doing. The butler sternly said, what if you get poison eating in a place like this? Ellison took offense and retorted, I was holding back, but your words are too much. Are you saying my food is poisoned? Are you the owner of the restaurant? I don't know if you prepared the meal knowing who this person is, but he is the Lord's son, Great City's Count, Dyran Grake. Dyran quickly signaled for the two to stop arguing, then took out a gold coin, placed it on the table, and left the restaurant dejectedly. Watching his forlorn figure, Ellison couldn't help but worry. Meanwhile, Ruren came running back, all dirty, and complained, "Stinky Ellison, it's your turn now." Ellison resignedly signaled that he had more important things at hand, saying they could talk about digging tomorrow, and asked her to activate space magic to transport him. But Ruren, who had been busy all day, said she was hungry, and Ellison promised to make her something tasty when they returned. Meanwhile, Dyran was back in his room at the castle. Suddenly, a teleportation portal appeared, and Ellison and Ruren walked out of it. Ellison handed Dyran the burger, saying, "This is yours since you've already paid." Then, he urged Dyran to eat quickly. Looking at the fragrant burger, Dyran couldn't help but drool. Just as he was about to enjoy it, the room door was suddenly knocked, and Ellison sighed in frustration. "Can't we have a bit of private space?" Dyran clearly didn't know how to respond, which stunned Ellison. Seeing Dyran's lack of confidence, Ellison told him, "You are the heir to a baronet. They can't refuse your orders, so be confident." Ellison encouraged, but Dyran still felt that the guards wouldn't listen to his orders. Instead, they always ignored him. "Young master, I'll open the door and come in." Seeing this, Ruren sighed softly, then loudly declared, "It was nothing, so leave. I never ordered you to come in." Dyran was startled because Ruren's voice was identical to his. Soon, the guards outside left. Ellison then instructed him, "You must establish your superiority." However, the next moment, Dyran hung his head, hoping Ellison would become his teacher. He said he had been raised without a mother, living with his stepmother, and no one had ever taught him how to behave. Since his father fell ill, his stepmother had isolated him even more. Like his father, he wanted to become a good lord, but the servants tried to control and restrict his movements under his stepmother's orders. Hearing this, Ellison was speechless. "But my thought changed after today's events. Teacher, please teach me more ways to become a good lord," Dyran said with overflowing enthusiasm. Seeing this, Ellison was dumbfounded. That conclusion's a bit weird though. However, he decided to teach him anyway. "You say you want to be a good lord, but the position of a lord comes with responsibilities. Therefore, you must be accountable for every word you say. Always listen and think before making a decision. If the decision benefits you, then all is well. If not, then accept it and take responsibility." Then, Ellison urged him to eat the burger while it was hot and left. After Ellison and Ruren left, Dyran took a bite of the burger and was immediately conquered by its deliciousness. Inspired by the tasty burger, Dyran suddenly realized the meaning of Ellison's words, muttering to himself, "I understand the real meaning now. A good lord means someone who makes an effort to ensure that everyone can enjoy this kind of food. I will definitely work hard." Just then, Ellison and Ruren had reappeared on the outskirts of the restaurant. Ellison's words to Dyran were actually made up on the spot, and he thought to himself, "I hope Dyran doesn't take it too seriously." "Then why did you put so much effort into it? You seem to care a lot," Ruren curiously asked. Ellison showed her a gold coin. "I'm doing as much I'm getting." It turns out that Dyran gave 100,000 runes in exchange for a hamburger that regularly cost 200 runes, and Ellison just provided him with a service appropriate for the price. Meanwhile, in a forest on the outskirts of Great City, there was a very popular clinic. The doctor there was not only skilled in medicine, but even used magic for healing. However, this wasn't the real reason the clinic was popular. Customers flocked to this remote location because the clinic's owner was a rare elf. At that moment, the elf doctor, Elena, appeared troubled. She told Rain that she was considering going back to her homeland, which puzzled Rain. Elena explained, "Although I like healing and helping others, I've found that no one is really interested in the healing. People go to all lengths just to see the elf woman, not the doctor I am. I've even been insulted by their families, which leaves me unsure of what to do, and now I don't even have the motivation to continue." Rain becomes worried and asks, "By any chance, do you not like me too?" "What? No, I like you, Mrs. Rain. Rather, you always treated me well. That's why I put up with this without prejudice." Rain understood that Elena couldn't find her true passion, which made her so despondent, just like herself. "So if there were more things that you liked here, would you still stay?" "There are so many things I don't like about my husband. Although Noel snores loudly at night, he is indeed very reliable. And before, you like the feeling of helping patients, right?" Elena nodded. Then, Rain recommended Ellison's restaurant to Elena, which confused her. Rain smiled and said, "I think you'll like it. The number of reasons for liking this place can keep increasing one by one." Meanwhile, Ellison is digging in a cave when he coincidentally runs into Mr. Knoll, who has brought his nephew to the restaurant to eat. Mr. Knoll tells him that an elf is about to arrive. Upon hearing this, Ellison quickly returns to the restaurant because elves are a very rare race, usually not appearing in human towns, so he cannot afford to be negligent. Elena, following Mrs. Rain's recommendation, arrives at the restaurant but finds only a little girl to greet her. Elena asks if this is Ellison's restaurant, to which Ruren confidently answers. Ruren, sensing her elven nature, exclaims, "Elves are indeed beautiful." This catches Elena off guard, and she hurriedly says, "You look very beautiful too, much younger than me." Ruren chuckles, "Are you saying I am young? In our race, I am indeed still considered young, but I am probably much older than you." Hearing this, Elena feels visibly nervous. In the next instant, a terrifying pressure erupts from Ruren. "How dare you speak so carelessly in front of me?" Frightened, Elena immediately kneels down. Ruren coldly proudly says, "If you become my servant, I will forgive your rudeness." This scene is just witnessed by Ellison as he returns. Seeing Ellison, Ruren excitedly explains, "I was just looking for an employee for the restaurant." She thought she would be praised, but a loud clang sounds, and Ruren becomes furious. This scene leaves Elena very confused. Am I dreaming right now? She finally realizes that Ruren is definitely a black dragon. In this world, even children know that dragons are not to be trifled with. They are walking natural disasters, capable of easily burning down an entire village if they wish. Dragons are the most powerful species, yet Ellison treats dragons like children. This leaves Elena wondering, who exactly is that guy? Then, Ellison apologizes for Ruren's behavior. "I didn't know such things would happen when I'm not around." Elena is also very curious if Ellison is a human, to which Ellison confirms, "Yes, I am human. You must have realized by now that child is a black dragon. I hope you can keep this secret. Of course, I have no intentions of disturbing a dragon because I am not ready to die." Hearing this, Elena seems overwhelmed, and Ruren's first impression on her wasn't good. Ellison quickly changes the subject, asking if Elena was recommended by Mrs. Rain, to which Elena nods. "Yes, I am Elena." Ellison worriedly says, "Did we mess up the first impression? Could we get a bad review for our restaurant?" Elena smiles and says, "I heard you can taste delicious food here, even if it's just made from vegetables, so I wanted to try it." From Elena's words, Ellison learns that elves do not eat meat because they cannot digest it. Quickly, Ellison thinks of a suitable recipe. Tomato pasta is a good choice. He begins preparing the dish, adding chopped onions, garlic, and mushrooms, frying them in heated olive oil to blend the different flavors, creating a wonderful aroma. Then, he passes chopped tomatoes through a sieve into the oil, seasoning with salt, sugar, and other spices, and slowly cooks it. He lowers the heat while ensuring the sauce doesn't burn. As the sauce thickens, he puts the pasta in boiling water, cooking it for 8 minutes, remembering to reserve some pasta water. Finally, he mixes the pasta with the sauce, adjusting the sauce's thickness with the pasta water. Thus, a delicious bowl of tomato pasta is ready. Then, Ellison invites Elena to taste freely, explaining, "There is no meat in this." The pasta, colored by the tomato sauce, looks appetizing and emits a faint aroma. Meanwhile, Mr. Noel's wooba meat is also ready, but Ellison notices that Noel's nephew seems troubled. Ellison plans to ask Elena if the food suits her taste, but turns around to see her gobbling it down. "I never knew something could taste so good." She finishes the food in a few bites, her face smeared with tomato sauce, completely unaware that Ellison is watching. Realizing this, she becomes embarrassed. Ellison smiles and hands her a napkin, signaling her not to worry. He also notices that Elena rarely dines out. Elena nods and explains, "I always thought vegetables were nothing special and questioned if there was a need for cooking, but I didn't expect Mr. Ellison's food to be so delicious. Well, it's true that the people here don't use that much spices, since they are rare." Elena then stood up and enthusiastically said, "But I changed my mind after coming here. It was really delicious. I'll have to thank Mrs. Rain." Ellison is relieved by the customer's praise. However, just then, arguing voices are heard nearby. It turns out Noel's nephew Nellen just found out he was adopted and feels deceived for over 20 years, which makes him unable to concentrate on his work, so he leaves the mine early. The two nearby also feel very awkward, involuntarily overhearing their conversation. Noel then tells his nephew, "Do you not know how Mrs. May worked day and night to raise you? She worked tirelessly because she wanted you to be well fed. Even though your father died early while working as a mercenary, don't you think she, not being your birth mother, has done so much for you?" Nellen stated that he was aware of everything, but now he dare not go home because he had an argument with his mother at noon. Hearing this, Mr. Noel became very angry, and when he saw the two in conflict, Ellison stepped forward to mediate. Just then, the door was pushed open again, and Mrs. Rain, in a panic, said, "Nellen, hurry to the mine. There's been a collapse, and your mother is trapped inside." Upon hearing this, Nellen immediately turned and ran towards the mine. At the same time, Elena also expressed her wish to go along, as they might need healing. Ellison also put on his mage robe, ready to assist. Moments later, Nellen was stopped at the entrance of the mine, as there was a risk of a secondary collapse. Ellison calmed him down and said, "Leave the rest to us." With Ellison's persuasion, the mine manager agreed to let them enter the mine. The two appear inside the mine. Just then, rocks began to fall from the ceiling, but were stopped by Ellison's magical barrier. Elena, not expecting Ellison to be a powerful mage, became very curious. Ellison, smiling, said, "More than that, I'm curious what made you willing to risk your life." Soon, the two reached a fork in the path. With just the two of them, time might not be enough, so Ellison decided to use magic to probe. Guided by the spirits, they quickly found the survivors. After Elena's examination, it was found that a survivor had serious leg injuries, which were eventually healed under her magical treatment. Next, they needed to help more people. Elena took care of healing the wounded, while Ellison used magic to move rocks and escort people out of the cave. The two quickly reached the end of the mine, where they found Nellen's mother. After Elena's examination, it was found that she had suffered a severe head injury, requiring Elena to perform more advanced healing, though she could not guarantee its effectiveness. Outside the cave, all the injured had been successfully rescued. Thanks to Elena's Elena's efforts, Mrs. May was also out of danger. The wound near her eye was not serious, and she could live normally once the bandage was removed. Seeing his injured mother, Nellen felt very guilty. If it wasn't for me, this wouldn't have happened to my mother. Just then, Mrs. May woke up, and everyone sighed in relief. The first thing she did upon waking was to ask if Nellen was hurt, which made Nellen no longer able to contain his emotions, and he burst into tears. Mrs. May had no intention of blaming him. At the same time, Elena explained why she entered the mine. She had intended to close her clinic and return to her homeland. Although human lifespans are much shorter than those of elves, they express their emotions freely. I think there's too much here that I cherish to just leave. I like the genuine emotions inherent in humans, and now I know how good the food here is too. As she spoke, Elena, weakened from the effort, nearly couldn't stand but was promptly supported by Ellison. Apologetically, she whispered, "Thank you." Then, Ellison cast an elf's mana transfer spell on Elena, which immediately made her feel much lighter. Ellison explained that it was taught to him by an elf companion named Beaton when he was in the troop. Elena was shocked by this revelation, as Beaton was a great hero of the elves, which made her even more curious about Ellison's identity. Meanwhile, the punished Rurin was still complaining about digging in the cave. Just then, a stream of water suddenly hit her face, making Rurin exclaim, "Did I dig up a spring?" To ascertain the source of the water, Rurin began digging downward. This angered Ellison, as it was a very dangerous action. Despite Rurin's deep digging, even Ellison's magic could not clearly detect the water source. Now that the cave space had expanded, supports were needed to ensure that the top would not collapse. Ellison then began chanting a spell, conjuring an advanced level 8 magic. Rurin warned him to be careful. If level 8 magic isn't handled well, it could blow the mountain top off. Ellison confidently replied, "Of course." As the magic was released, energy instantly lit up the entire cave. Moments later, a huge shield sturdily supported the mountain top. At the same time, the previously disappeared groundwater began to stir and gushed out from the ground instantly. Seeing the steamy spring water, Ellison realized it was a hot spring, presumably activated by the recent magic. Seeing this, Rurin decided to wash off the dirt on her, but before Ellison could warn her, she had already rushed in and immediately got her face scalded. Ellison helplessly signaled to her, "You can't be so reckless in the future." Rurin, however, got sulky and stubbornly ignored Ellison. "How was I supposed to know it was hot?" Rurin complained. Following that, Ellison used isolation magic to separate the water, because once the water stopped flowing, the dirt would naturally settle, allowing the shield to contain clean hot water. Thus, a makeshift hot spring was completed. Ellison then picked up Rurin and threw her into the hot spring. Rurin, not yet reacting, thought Ellison was about to make Black Dragon hot pot. "Wait, it's just a little warm." Ellison smiled and signaled to her, "I cooled it down, of course." Then, he too soaked in the hot spring. At that moment, Rurin asked Ellison where he had been at noon. When she learned that Ellison had gone to rescue people with an elf, she became very angry. Ellison explained that the injured people needed a doctor because he was not skilled in healing magic. An irritated Rurin declared, "I hate all races, including elves. Except for you, Ellison. I look down on everyone else." Hearing this, Ellison decided to teach her a lesson. Thus, he used a magic circle to boil water, poured the hot water into a cup, then took out a box of cocoa and had her try it. Rurin curiously asked, "What is this dark stuff?" Ellison explained, "This is a powder made from something called cocoa beans." Rurin took a sip and was surprised to find it both bitter and sweet. He further explained, "Cocoa beans might look like a simple powder, but they undergo a complex process of cultivation, fermentation, roasting, and pressing. Many people work hard so that we can enjoy it." Ellison continued, "Just like the mine collapse, although I have the power to destroy an entire mountain range, even so, I couldn't save a single injured person on my own. Without Mr. Knoll, I couldn't even get the ingredients for the restaurant. Even if I can create a large space with magic, we still need the help of others to make things go smoothly. I ultimately have to ask dwarves to help build a lair. Racial abilities and personalities may differ, but we shouldn't reject everyone because of these differences. Even dragons can't conquer the world alone." Upon hearing this, Rurin began to reflect. She understood Ellison's point but still insisted, "I will treat you differently from others." Meanwhile, Mr. Ment's mercenary group was engaged in a fierce battle with a gang of thieves, squeezing towards the edge of a cliff. Just then, Ment noticed that Miltine was in danger, but he managed to kill the robber in time. However, the bandit leader took the opportunity to launch a sneak attack from behind, but fortunately, Ment quickly dodged the attack and punched the leader, sending him flying. Unexpectedly, the leader chose to drag Ment down with him, and both fell off the cliff. This leaves Miltine in great shock. Just then, Ellison's restaurant decided not to open for the day because he had a new plan: to add some milk to the coffee. For this, he decided to build a dairy farm so that he could have a stable supply of milk. After the farm was built, they also needed to catch some milk-producing animal called Berineric, which is a cow in this world. Ellison found out the specific location of the cows downstream of the Verant River, then signaled Rurin to use teleportation magic to take him there. Rurin hesitated, explaining, "My current teleportation magic can only go to places I've seen before. Last time I could go to the Count's mansion because I tracked Iron's scent." Ellison reassured her. Don't worry, I'll tell you the direction and distance. Just go by feel. Despite Ruren's reluctance, she activated the teleportation magic because she wasn't sure if the location was correct. Soon the two were above a lake, directly above the habitat of the cows. Ellison was relieved they had found the right place, and Ruren confirmed this, but she cautioned, that's great, except for the fact that we're high up in the sky. It was then that Ellison realized, Ruren, after all, is a black dragon, so why would she be afraid of the sky? He teased her, just open your wings. However, Ruren was reluctant to transform into her dragon form. Seeing this, Ellison had no choice but to cast a levitation spell. He didn't understand why Ruren hated her dragon form, seeming to have some secrets deep inside, but Ellison didn't intentionally inquire. Soon, the two safely landed on the ground. Ruren expressed that this was her first time seeing such a large lake. This is the ocean. It's normal you haven't seen it because you've always stayed in the cave. Thus, Ellison decided to catch the cows first and then play in the ocean with Ruren for a while. Hearing this, Ruren got excited and asked how many cows Ellison planned to catch, proposing a contest where the loser would do the dishes. Meanwhile, back at the restaurant, Mr. Knoll, Diran, and Elena were waiting at the restaurant door, having waited from noon until midday without seeing Ellison return. Although they were very hungry, each had a craving for Ellison's hand-cooked dishes and was determined to eat his cooking. At the same time, a teleportation portal suddenly opened at the farm's location, and Ruren and Ellison emerged soaking wet, followed by a herd of docile cows. This was all Ruren's doing, as the bloodline of a black dragon could suppress many animals. Next, all that was needed was to build the barn. When Ellison returned to the restaurant, he was stunned, seeing 3 people nearly starved to death at his restaurant's door. He hadn't expected them to wait until he came back. Moments later, as Mr. Knoll was devouring pork belly, everyone finally got to eat delicious food, and each was thoroughly satisfied. Knoll joked, if we hadn't eaten today, there might have been 3 more graves next to the restaurant. Meanwhile, Ruren started dishwashing. At that moment, Mr. Knoll inquired about Ellison's plans for building the meadow, noting that such a large meadow would definitely need helpers. Ellison nodded in agreement, acknowledging that the meadow indeed needed someone to look after the grass and take care of feeding, and he planned to hold interviews for this purpose. Hearing this, Mr. Knoll also became interested and said to Ellison, I heard Elena can discern a person's inner intentions, and Diran has learned how to find trustworthy people. Elena and Diran confirm these facts, and I've also met all kinds of guys while working as a mercenary. We should give you something in return for making you work on your holiday. Ellison, a bit confused, asked, something in return? We'll do the job interviews for you. The next day, when Ellison posted a hiring notice for the meadow, in less than half a day, the restaurant's entrance was lined with people coming for interviews. Now, let's start with the first one. The first candidate to enter was a young man, but Mr. Knoll immediately dismissed him upon seeing his lack of energy. The second person to enter was a handsome young man, who made a very good impression on Mr. Knoll. Just then, the young man noticed Elena standing aside and instantly had some inappropriate thoughts. Elena immediately declared failure. When Mr. Knoll learned of his thoughts, he too became very angry. Next, a candidate with management experience walked in. A man with 30 years of pasture management experience came for an interview, promising that he could make the meadow the best in town. Hearing this, Diran put him to the test. What are your plans for the future development of the Barinrix? What are the sales incentives for dairy products? And how do you handle diseases and injuries? The barrage of questions stunned the man, and before the trio could announce the result, he left on his own, muttering, so you are all crazy. Ruren also didn't expect that finding a worker would be this difficult. Then another interview commenced. Mr. Knoll immediately became angry upon seeing the next candidate enter. Failure. You are the one who tried to start a fight in my meat shop, and you looked at me with weird eyes. Your response is not satisfactory. His gaze is too weak. He's staring at me. They are just animals. How dare you say that? Failed. After interviewing everyone, they failed to find a suitable worker, which made Ellison start to doubt his life and even wondered if the salary offered in the recruitment notice was too low. Just as Ellison felt hopeless, the door was pushed open again, and surprisingly, Miltine walked in, which puzzled Mr. Knoll. I heard Ment was assigned to protect a caravan. What are you doing here? Miltine then recounted the recent encounter of the mercenary group. While protecting the caravan, they faced bandits, and Ment accidentally fell off a cliff during the battle. Hearing this, Mr. Knoll immediately became worried and asked, how is he now? His external wounds have healed, but his legs suffered severe damage, and he is retired from mercenary work. Ellison suggested, you should have Elena take a look. Maybe she can help him recover. At that moment, Ruren seriously asked, why do you want to work here? Ellison immediately signaled Ruren, you can't ask people that under these circumstances. Ruren, looking aggrieved, explained, I was just curious. After hesitating for a moment, Miltine said, I'm looking for something I can do in the future because I hope to work together with him later. This statement startled everyone. Mr. Knoll incredulously asked, are you saying you've fallen in love with him? How old are you this year? Later, it was revealed that Miltine was 29 years old, and there was a 13-year age gap between the two. Miltine said she didn't mind. Elena explained, in Elven society, this is normal, but among humans, indeed, the gap is a bit large. However, Miltine had made up up his mind. I'm no longer a mercenary. If I can't work here, I'll starve on the streets. Rurin, satisfied with her resolve, said, I accept you working here. Miltine was very grateful for this. Then Ellison asked, does Mr. Met know about this? Miltine replied that she planned to tell Met once the meadow produced its first cup of milk and invite him to work together, as it was Met who had taught her everything, and now she wanted to be like Mr. Met. Elena admired Miltine's determination while Ellison was already planning the next dish. When we get our first milk, I've decided on the dish to make when I visit Mr. Ment. I look forward to working with you. Thank you. I look forward to working with you too. The next day, Ellison was working when Miltine arrived at the meadow early in the morning, asking what to do next. Ellison instructed her to let the Barinerics out of the fence to graze. Miltine didn't expect the usually aggressive Barinerics to become so docile, thinking some special magic was used. Unexpectedly, one of the Barinerics simply turned and knocked her down. Right, it's not fun if you succeed on your first try. She had to exert all her strength just to manage barely. Even with all her strength, Miltine couldn't make the Barinerics move. Instead, she was kicked and sent flying by one. Ellison helplessly prayed for her from the side. Miltine, hang in there. The hard work on the farm continued. If these Barinerics were wild, their hooves would wear down naturally during movement and wouldn't require care, but the domesticated Barinerics needed regular hoof maintenance. It's for your own good. Just stay calm. But she was sent flying again. A few days later, Miltine was so exhausted she collapsed on the ground, having spent days busy only to find she couldn't even manage the grazing properly, let alone milking. She couldn't help but lament, at this rate, I'll be fired before I even start working with him. Just then, a Barineric licked her cheek, then all the Barinerics gathered around her. Miltine's eyes fell on a canister nearby, thinking perhaps she could try milking now. Moments later, Miltine returned to the restaurant jubilantly with the canister, having finally harvested her first labor fruits. Even Ellison didn't expect her to succeed in milking so quickly. Ellison commendably said to her, well done. Now it's time to prepare for the feast. What are we making? Miltine asked curiously. A special dish for Mr. Ment. A pizza with lots of cheese, Ellison said while preparing a huge pot for the milk. He first explained, pasteurize the milk at low temperature for 30 minutes, making sure not to let it boil. Then slightly lower the temperature and add vinegar to make the milk curdle. It would be better if we had rennet, but here we must make do with vinegar. After the milk curdled, Ellison cut the curd, separated it from the whey, soaked the curd in salt water and hot water, stretched and folded it during this process to remove residual air bubbles and excess moisture, then shaped it. Miltine was seeing the cheese-making process for the first time and was full of curiosity. Ellison then signaled to her, next, we need to prepare dishes that complement the cheese. What gift have you prepared for Mr. Ment? Ellison suddenly asked, causing Miltine's face to flush red. Though she wasn't ready, she knew this was an opportunity to express her feelings. Ellison then started boasting about himself. Back in the day, women would line up wherever I went. Miltine curiously asked, so, have you had any romantic experiences? This question stumped Ellison, as he actually had no romantic experience. None. They just line up and left. Nevertheless, Ellison encouraged her, as long as you are sincere, Mr. Met will surely feel it. Just then a knock sounded on Ment's room door, and he was embarrassed to find everyone had located his residence, apologizing awkwardly. I didn't mean to keep it a secret from everyone. Mr. Knoll was very upset. You should have told us sooner. Then, Ellison introduced Elena to Ment, saying she could be a great help. Ment, curious, asked, how did you find out about this? Only the mercenary group knows my location. He quickly guessed it was Miltine who had told them. Meanwhile, Elena used elven magic to treat Ment's leg, and soon he was able to stand up. Elena explained, full recovery might be difficult, but this should help with the healing. Ment noticed that Miltine was acting particularly strange today and asked her, do you have something to tell everyone? Miltine found it harder to speak than she had imagined, with everyone watching intently. To ease the awkward atmosphere, Miltine changed the subject. You must be hungry, right? Shall we have a meal first? Maybe he'll understand my feeling when he sees the food, she thought to herself. Then, she brought out a heart-shaped dish. A heart-shaped pizza appeared before everyone, and Ment was seeing such food for the first time. Miltine explained, this dish is called pizza, specially made for Mr. Ment, with a lot of help from Ellison. It looks pretty good, doesn't it? Unexpectedly, Ment directly picked up a slice, breaking the heart shape apart. Ellison jokingly added, it's made with cheese. Ment tasted it. The sweet pizza with a subtle creamy flavor was very rich. He gave a positive review of Miltine's culinary effort. At that moment, Miltine could only swallow her tears while eating her own pizza, understanding that her plan to express feelings through food had failed. In no time, the pizza was devoured by everyone. Then, Miltine asked, what do you plan to do in the future? Ment said he hadn't decided yet. Miltine took the opportunity to invite him. Would you like to work with me at Ellison's ranch? Mr. Ment was stunned. You are running a ranch too? It's a recent development, but I'd be happy if you would agree. Miltine, you're already working there. What about your mercenary job? Miltine explained that she had quit her mercenary job because she wanted to prepare for their future together. Everyone affirmed Miltine's courage, but Mr. Ment sensed something was amiss. He sighed lightly. It looks like I need to work on recovering. Since you're no longer a mercenary, why not find a boyfriend? This comment left everyone agape. Ment continued, at your age, it's time to think think about finding a boyfriend. Mr. Knoll couldn't help himself. How did this happen? Where did we go wrong? Then, Mr. Ment thanked Ellison, asking when should he start working, which left Ellison puzzled. You can start slowly after completing your rehabilitation. After dinner, Miltine left, and everyone was worried about her state. Miltine signaled to them not to worry. I'm fine now. She then said goodbye to everyone, but as she turned around, tears were already streaming down her face. Mr. Knoll was very puzzled. How could Ment not understand her? Elena signaled to both. He understands Miltine's intentions. You can see it in his eyes. Meanwhile, Mr. Ment sat alone in the living room, unsure how to deal with everything. The next day, in downtown Greek City, a parade is underway to announce the arrival of the esteemed nobles of the Ruben Empire. Knights stand on guard as they welcome the arrival of Crown Prince Leon Heres. As he waves and smiles, a thought crosses his mind. It's always peaceful here, no matter when you visit, and it's very unimpressive. His handsome features draw the attention of many women, who blush and avert their gazes when his eyes meet theirs. Hearing this, he smiled, giving them his attention. Meanwhile, Duke Porgo Timiran inquires what the Greek family is doing. The question is answered by Timiran Duke's family chief magician, Medrin. The Lord's castle is preparing to welcome you. The Duke can't help but express his disbelief. The Crown Prince and a Duke are coming to visit, and they're welcomed only once they reach the castle. This is presumptuous. Meanwhile, at the Lord's castle, Diran is nervously inquiring about his father's condition from the butler. The butler tells him that the Count's health is not good, and as the heir, Diran must face this situation himself. As the door slowly opens, Diran gathers his courage and walks in. The prince, seeing this, greets him with a smile, and Diran pays him the highest respect. Diran expresses regret that the Count couldn't come to meet them personally. That's a pity. If I remember correctly, the Count was close to Marquis Saran. Prince Leon asks, yes, but I haven't seen Marquis Saran in a while. Prince Leon then shares that he heard that Marquis Saran isn't in good health either. Just then Sir Porgo discontentedly says, in that case, it means it's time to change the lord of the castle. He then hints to Diran to join his faction, causing Diran's heart to jump. He was not prepared to answer these complex questions yet. Sir Porgo changes the topic. Due to the large-scale flood control plans and the civil war in the neighboring kingdom, we plan to raise the taxes in Greek City. If you accept my earlier proposal, the situation might be different. Is this question also difficult to answer? Faced with Sir Porgo's relentless pressure, Diran feels overwhelmed and then loudly says, I have prepared a dinner party. I will give you an answer then. Hearing about the dinner, the prince immediately becomes interested. Do you think you can satisfy someone who has dined in the palace? Diran confidently replies, because there's a great restaurant in Greek City. Meanwhile, it's lunchtime. Miltine puts down the feed she was holding. Today's lunch is fried rice with eggs. At this moment, Rurin can hardly wait, but she hasn't started eating because she feels her portion seems to have gotten smaller. Just then, the restaurant's door is suddenly kicked open, and a group of soldiers rush in, appearing before everyone. This confuses Ellison, as he does not recognize these people. Meanwhile, the soldiers slowly draw their swords. Are you the owner of this restaurant? Ellison nods affirmatively, but also politely reminds, please put away your sword. Seeing this, Rurin, enjoying her meal, gestures to Ellison, do you need help? In that instant, a soldier's sword is already at Ellison's neck, threatening, kneel down now, or you won't see tomorrow's sun. Hearing this, Ellison is very angry and coldly says, this is my final warning, get out of my restaurant. Just as the soldiers are about to act, a voice stops them. Who told you to do this? The soldiers immediately cease their actions. When the leader removes his helmet, it turns out to be Ellison's former comrade in arms, Diriant. Diriant immediately reprimands the soldiers who had misbehaved. As the two catch up, Diriant reminisces about the old days, especially about a time when his negligence almost led to the annihilation of their forces. Fortunately, Ellison appeared in time to save the situation and declined the Empire's reward. What touched Diriant the most was that Ellison gave all the prize money to his wife. Diriant had pursued personal glory at the expense of his family, and Ellison's gesture deeply moved him. When he learned that Ellison had opened a restaurant in Greek, he rushed over immediately and prepared a plan to make Ellison's restaurant the best in Greek. Upon hearing this, Ellison was also taken aback. I'm going to close down all the restaurants in Greek City except yours. That's how your restaurant becomes the best. A perfect plan. Hearing this, Ellison thought to himself, has he gone mad? Suddenly, Diriant drew his sword and charged off, signaling the soldiers to follow, leaving Ellison puzzled and unaware of what was happening. Meanwhile, as the prince was on his way to the restaurant, Porgo reminded him to bring a guard escort. Before he could finish, several dark weapons were thrown at the prince. Fortunately, they were intercepted by a magical barrier from their chief mage, Medrin. Who are you? The Duke angrily shouted while Diriant was also in shock at what was happening. Then, a group of assassins appeared in front of the squad. Hand over the crown prince, then we'll let the rest go. The Duke signaled to Medrin, don't let a single one live. Medrin slowly took off her hat, as you wish. Hearing this made the assassins unsettled, but their leader still signaled to continue the attack. The next second, the assassins charged at Medrin, who raised her hand and cast a high-level magic spell, instantly overturning the ground, causing the assassins to scatter. The prince exclaimed, Medrin is the Empire's most formidable mage. With her, I'm not even afraid of dragons. Medrin humbly responded, you flatter me, your highness. Dairan, witnessing all this, was also utterly shocked, realizing that the rumors about Medrin were indeed true. She is the only 7th class archmage capable of combating an entire army on her own. That moment, Ellison was magically restraining Darian, who had a bad habit of running off excitedly without looking back. Ellison made him stand up and took this opportunity to ask him what he was planning to do at other restaurants. Darian confessed that he was going to visit all the nearby restaurants and will tell them their food had worms. Hearing this, Ellison was stunned and responded, that's creative, but it's not what I wanted you to do. Darian felt very sorry. Just then, the sound of horse hooves approached and the soldiers immediately tensed up. Seeing this, Darian also saluted the approaching figure. The prince was surprised to see Darian there, and Darian explained, I heard there's a good restaurant here, so I wanted to try it. The prince smiled, indicating he needn't be so formal, and added that he wasn't alone. Then, the prince greeted Ellison, are you the owner of this restaurant? Ellison nodded in response, yes, welcome. Ellison couldn't help but wonder why a prince would come to the city of Grake. Meanwhile, the prince noticed Ellison's old-style mage robe. Ellison explained, I once served in the mage corps, but it's been a long time since I retired. The prince was incredulous, asking, if that's the case, then you must know my guard mage. She used to be part of the corps. Then, the prince signaled Medrin to come and see her junior. At this moment, Porgo felt very displeased, believing that coming to this small restaurant was a waste of time. Meanwhile, Medrin broke out in a cold sweat, breathing heavily as if she had seen a horrifying creature. It took a reminder from Porgo for her to come back to her senses, hurriedly dismounting. Medrin, do you recognize the mage before you? The prince asked. Medrin stammered, hesitant to answer directly, as she needed to be cautious. She knew that if she angered Ellison, everyone present could be in danger. At that moment, Ellison offered a friendly smile. I don't think we've met, have we? Medrin quickly nodded. Indeed, it's a pleasure to meet you. Medrin understood that Ellison saying he didn't know her might be to avoid trouble. She reminded herself, in this situation, I should try to keep everything normal. Then, Medrin added, this restaurant will host a dinner for His Highness. It should be a great honor for any chef. Ellison nodded. Of course, the guests will be pleased. Then, the prince and his entourage entered the restaurant, praising its cleanliness. Ellison, smiling, said, sorry, it's not as grand as the palace. Then, Ellison changed the topic and asked boldly, how did your highness find this place? The prince responded with a smile, I heard that the food at this restaurant could even astonish the royal family. Ellison looked towards Dairan and instantly understood the reason. It seems my peaceful life is about to be disrupted again. It turned out that Dairan, due to his father's health condition, had been caught up in a power struggle and had to seek Ellison's help. Ellison also noticed Porgo, understanding that he was one of those with the strongest desire for power in the palace. Ellison then turned his gaze to the prince, his eyes suddenly sharp, thinking to himself, I cannot let this go. At that moment, the prince commented on the restaurant, we have come all this way to this restaurant out of faith in you, great boy, so shouldn't you have faith in us too? The prince then proposed a bet. If you can't produce a dish that amazes me, Dairan will have to run around Grake City naked. Hearing this, Dairan was shocked, but Ellison signaled him not to worry. The upcoming dishes will definitely surprise you. Then the bet is confirmed, the prince said with a raised eyebrow. The first appetizer, mutton mushroom soup, was quickly prepared, and the prince looked forward to it. But he knew that impressing him with one dish was not easy. After tasting it carefully, the prince gave a high appraisal but said, it's good, but it cannot be described as astonishing, as I've tasted it many times in the palace. Porgo agreed with the prince's opinion. At this moment, Ellison remained calm, smiling and saying, let's hear others' opinions. Medrin nervously picked up the mushroom soup, opened it, and found that the mushrooms displayed a line of text, please give me a warm response. This startled her, making her think, isn't this a world-class problem? Despite this, she tasted the soup and bravely spoke up, displaying one of her few acts of dramatization. This soup is really delicious. I've never tasted such delicious mushroom soup before. I feel like mushrooms are growing in my stomach. This exaggerated performance slightly distorted the expressions of everyone present. This includes Dairan and also Ellison, who is stopping himself from laughing. What's going on now? Everyone wondered internally. So, shouldn't you try it again? It's so delicious, she murmured softly. Medrin's unusual performance caught the prince's attention, who was very surprised. Is it really that good? He decided to taste it again, making Dairan also curious. Although the mutton mushroom soup was tasty, Dairan felt that Medrin's overreaction was not just because of the soup. A mage living in the palace couldn't have not tasted this mutton mushroom soup. Who could compel a 7th level mage to do anything? Dairan pondered silently, slowly turning his gaze towards Ellison, while at this moment, Ellison let out a light chuckle. After tasting again, the prince said it wasn't different from what's served in the palace. It tastes similar to what we have in the palace. Porgo jokingly added, I never thought you liked mutton mushroom soup this much. When we return to the palace, I'll make sure it's included in your diet. Hearing this, Medrin shuddered, quickly indicating, I just particularly like the lamb soup here. However, after Medrin finished the soup, another line of text appeared in the soup bowl. When you're done, please come out at the back of the restaurant. This gave Medrin a fright, and unintentionally spit out the soup she she was eating. The prince curiously asked Porgo, "Has Medrun always been this weird when eating?" Porgo shook his head helplessly. Medrun walks outside the restaurant with mixed emotions. Then she found where Ellison has been waiting for some time. She cautiously approaches, and in the next instant, a powerful soundproofing magic envelopes her. Ellison greets her with a friendly smile. "It's been a long time, Miss Medrun. Your performance in there was very good. However, you shouldn't be here because I remember warning you that we should not meet again." Medrun quickly explains, "I swear, I really didn't know you lived here." Ellison then asks her why the prince has come to Great City. "He is the prince with the worst reputation. I heard he is lascivious and not interested in power. I thought the same until I saw him today, but his performance showed me a clue. He pretends to be non-autocratic, but he knows how to use his position for personal gain. He uses his bad reputation as a shield, but in reality, he is pressuring the Lord of Great City. I think the idea of annexing Great City is Porgo's, but actually, it's the prince's own plan." Medrun is surprised that Ellison could see through all this, but as the prince's guard mage, she firmly says, "Even if you torture me, I cannot tell you so much." Just then, a voice interrupts her. "Is that so? Even if we torture you, you wouldn't tell? Let's see if that's the case." Ruren's voice rises, instantly making Medrun's legs go weak, and now her only thought is to go home. Moments later, when Medrun returns to everyone, they are all very surprised to see her face pale as paper. At this moment, what the prince cares about most is the bet with Diran. "If you can't present a surprising dish, then I win." "A dish that surprises me? Impossible, because I'm not in the mood for surprises today." Faced with the prince's mockery, Diran remains silent. The prince suddenly becomes serious. "You're not stupid. You know what this means. Even if your father got up from his sickbed and start cooking for me, I wouldn't be surprised unless you can give me the answer I want." Under the prince's pressure, Diran doesn't choose to submit. He firmly says, "A lord is a position of responsibility, and I have the right to let the people make their own choices. I can endure my own humiliation, but most importantly, I believe in this restaurant. If I lose, I will run naked around the city." The sun is setting and Ellison finally serves today's main dish. The prince signals Ellison, "This dish is of great importance. You seem very confident." Ellison smiles slightly, affirming. When Ellison lifts the lid, a lump of mud appears before everyone, making Porgo full of doubt. "Are we really eating this?" Ellison takes out a hammer, dismissing Porgo's assumption. With gentle taps from Ellison, the leaves inside reveal themselves, and a deliciously steaming palenque appears before everyone. The prince curiously asks Ellison how he achieved this. Ellison explains, "We don't usually cook them, but since you came here, I've prepared it for you. This dish looks like an unremarkable lump of mud from the outside. If a stranger sees it, they would ask, 'What is this dish?' That's because it hides itself for the element of surprise, but they can't discern it because they don't know what this dish looks like." The prince detects a deeper meaning in Ellison's words. He then raises an eyebrow and asks, "What exactly are you trying to say?" Ellison looks at the mud in his hand, casually says, "Nothing much, just a simple dish. Its profound meaning is about mass expulsions of central nobility to strengthen royal power, just like what His Highness is pretending to be, harmless and disinterested in power." At this, Porgo's cutlery drops to the floor, and Medrun keeps her head down, not daring to speak. Even Diaran's eyes widen in shock. "Of course, I shouldn't give away the secret by poking at this dish. Isn't that right, Your Highness?" Prince Leon cannot answer and is utterly shocked at what he hears.